Very good morning to you. Welcome to the Morning Brief, live on Channels Television. We're broadcasting from Lagos, Nigeria. I'm Jeffrey Uzom. It's a Monday edition of the program, and it's already, is it 10 or 11 days now? Let me check.
11 days.
11 days. I always want to be like Bukola on this watch.
Well, don't
Bukola,
worry.
how are you?
You're going to get bitten by the bug also very, very soon, I assure you. It's a beautiful Monday morning, so it's time to get up, dress up, and show up. Yes, be the best that you can. Welcome to the Morning Brief, your perfect day starter right here on Channels Television. How have you been? We hope that you are, pressing on regardless of the odds.
When you say beautiful Monday morning, you know what I remember? I remember Rema's song. Do you know that song?
Rema, no.
Oh, boy. Do you know Rema?
Jeffrey, yeah, let's
Lord,
make progress. Let's make progress, Jeffrey.
Okay. I know what to do today on this show. We're going to get there. Now that I know Bukola's major weak points, I'm going to capitalize on it. That's a promise I've made to you guys, and I'm going to keep it up. So I've been tracking a few things.
Jeffrey, yeah.
So a couple of things that happened over the weekend, and a lot is still going to happen this week. So I want to say big congratulations to Edo Queens. The Champions League, Women's Champions League on the continent, they won 3-0. The
women never fail us, Jeffrey.
Yeah, they won 3-0. So congratulations to all of Edo Queens for making us proud. Let's see. CB is from Ethiopia, by the way. So it's Edo Queens versus CB, and they came out victorious. I was watching part of the match, but I couldn't see everything that had to do with that match. But still staying with football, I don't know what's going on, Bukola, with Manchester, Man City. They call it Man City. Pep Guardiola's team, first 4 consecutive losses, both at the EPL level and the Champions League level. This is a guy who is a maestro when it comes to coaching and football. Is this an anticlimax to him? And is this master stroke now when it comes to coaching? We do not know. Maybe it's an early call, but a lot of people are concerned. So there was a real-out of the matches he's lost, and some at a very wide margin. But let's see how things play out eventually, because one of the things I was also tracking is I was just thinking about it. I don't know, but I suspect this December is going to be very dirty. You know what we call dirty December?
D-E-T-T-Y.
Yeah, dirty. So dirty December. But let the president and the leadership of our country not make a mistake about why the December may be dirty. It may not be dirty, it may be dirty. Because in Nigeria and Africa, or let me say Nigeria for instance, we celebrate everything. We celebrate birthdays, we celebrate anniversaries, we celebrate death. Sometimes we celebrate death even more than that. So we drink about and celebrate everything. So perhaps, maybe people will just turn up and say, whatever, regardless of what we're going through as a country, let's just turn up. So, Mr. President and the leadership of our country, when we see people spending like they've lost their mind this December, calling it dirty December, please calm down. It's not as if things are working. They are just celebrating the pain or
and then they'll face the reality.
They'll face the reality in January. and so I was just thinking about it over the weekend. I may be wrong that December may be very dirty. And of course, this week, lots of political happenings. Tomorrow, there will be a new governor in Edo State. Monday, Okpebholo takes over from Godwin Obaseki. We're also going to see Trump visiting Biden as part of the transition. And on Saturday, we'll see Ondo people going to the polls to elect a new governor. So a lot of politics going on, Bukola. Yeah,
quite a lot as far as politics is concerned. But there's also talk about whether or not there's a call for prayer. And we see that the office of the wife of the president has debunked those reports, saying that she didn't call for prayers. She's not embarking on any prayer for the stability of the economy. Well, we hear her, although the wife of the president is a praying person, and that has never been in doubt in the past. But more importantly, we must all roll our sleeves. Some would say that Nigeria has a dose of prayers to go around the entire universe, but there's a huge contradiction between her praying capacity and what exactly is on ground. Speaking of the work that needs to be done, we also hear that the president has touched down in Saudi Arabia to participate in the Israeli-Arab summit. As a matter of fact, the president is supposed to be making a presentation on Nigeria's foreign policy disposition towards the Israeli-Gaza conflict. And some would say, what has Nigeria, why should Nigeria spend huge resources on such a trip? You know, Nigeria's foreign policy outlook can be communicated in the first place through its foreign missions abroad. There are pressing issues at home that Mr. President ought to, tackle headlong. Speaking of which, there is a new and emerging security threat in Nigeria's northwest, in Kebbi State to be precise, where we have the new group, embarking on killing missions time and again. That needs some more creative approach to tackling. So some would say that the president should be back home tackling all of that. And of course, the economic challenges as well. There's a dispute, between marketers and the Dangote refinery. What is our, outlook as far as importation of petrol is concerned? The president, as the Minister of Petroleum, is he intervening? What is the categorical policy disposition of the federal government towards those issues? Those are pressing issues that the presidency should be making categorical statements on, so that we can find resolution on time. Because, as far as that is concerned, we hear also that some African countries are leading in buying petrol from Nigeria. So why did Nigeria spend all of those dollars, supporting Dangote refinery to put up that refinery in the first place? So all of those issues are happening, and we're following them up for you, on all fronts, and we're going to be looking through them perhaps through the week. But what do we have for you today, Jeffrey? What do we have?
Okay, just before I get to what we have for you today, for me, the president wants to travel, he wants to stay at home. Whatever he is, let him just keep the country going and working, That's just mine, How people will get out of this very challenging situation they found themselves because of the policy of government is what I'm more interested in than anything. No matter what is done in any sector, no matter what pronouncement, no matter what initiative, if the welfare and the well-being of the people is not getting better, then I don't know where we're headed. But
well, so for some, it's a matter of priorities, Jeffrey. There's a team, a foreign policy mission that is also accompanying the president, and that comes with attendant cost on revenue.
Yes, I'm not disputing any of it. I'm just saying what is more important to Nigerians. Why Nigerians are looking at a lot of things that ordinarily they may not look at is because things are not working. So they will be wondering, why are you traveling, where we are having issues? So those are things I'm talking about at the end of the day. So he has to fix the country. He has a responsibility. He said we should not pity him, and trust us, we're not going to pity him. We'll commend some of the efforts, but there's a lot more to be done. But let's tell you what we're doing today. First, we're going to look at what we always call the Tinubunomics, where we take a look at some of the policies of government. But today, from the issue of the derivation formula that is causing brouhaha in the polity between governors and the framers of the bills, 4 bills that have been passed in the National Assembly. Some members of the National Assembly are saying, this bill will not go anywhere. Some say it will go somewhere. But that is not even the big contention today. We may touch on that just a little bit, but we'll deep dive into the economic policy of the president as far as the oil and gas industry is concerned. You remember that October was supposed to be when the sale of crude oil will be in Naira. How far and how well has that gone in that particular aspect of our economy? We'll be examining it with an economist right here on the program today.
And apart from that, we'll also be taking a look at security in the Northwest. Of course, we've talked about it earlier on, but how much of a challenge does it present? How can we also rein in on this challenge and prevent it from spreading to other parts of the North, and maybe stop it, from making an onslaught into the Southwest? We're going to be having that conversation as well today.
And that is not all. One of the favorite part of the show, this very lighter side and softer side of things, where there is no politics fighting. Okay.
No,
our Grammy nominees, ladies and gentlemen, drum roll. Yes, we're going to talk about the Grammy nominations. Nigerians have decided that, look, in that category for Africa, let every other African country just take a back chair for now. We're in charge. Thames, Wizkid, Rema, that Bukola doesn't know, Davido, Ashake, Burner, all of these guys.
Yemi Alade.
Yemi Alade.
I know Yemi Alade.
I know you know Yemi Alade.
Yeah.
Even Chris Brown found himself.
One of Mama Africa's, singing divas. I know Yemi Alade.
So, we're going to be talking about all of the Grammy nominations, how Nigeria will eventually fare. I know a category that a Nigerian will win. I know one category, except my listing is wrong. But the other ones, let's see how it goes eventually. So we're talking about this today on the program, right here on the morning break. At least I know Bukola doesn't know Rema. So
I know Davido, I know Wizkid, I know Burna Boy, I know Thames, I know Yemi Alade, and I know Rema. At least now I know Rema.
Don't forget, hashtag CTV Morning Brief on X is how you get across to us to talk to us about what you're thinking and what you've been processing. So we'll go to that virtual screen to take a look at your comments as well. And we promise as soon as our WhatsApp number is up, we're going to do better. We're talking to you via that platform as well. But for now, we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll be bringing you top stories and go to those trends before we get to our very first conversation for the day. Join us again. Top on the brief this morning, the president has arrived Saudi Arabia, that's in Riyadh, to participate in the Joint Arab Islamic Summit. He was received by the Deputy Governor of Riyadh region, Prince Mohammed bin Abdulrahman bin Abdulaziz. The summit held at the invitation of King Salman and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman will focus on the current situation in the Middle East, and the meeting between both leaders is expected to address a number of critical regional issues, with particular emphasis on the ongoing Israel-Palestinian conflict. That's according to the presidential spokesman, Bayo Onanuga.
In Israel and in Palestine, we have seen the kind of loss of lives and destruction of property that everyone around the globe is talking about. And so when this summit was muted and Nigeria was invited, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, consistent with his thinking about, being very humane. He is a very, very humane leader. He looks at the issue of humanity very seriously. Whatever the reasons are, he thinks that both countries need to de-escalate. They must come back to the negotiating table so that at least for the, let's have some peaceful resolution. Whatever is the case, this conflict can never end on the war front. We must come to find a diplomatic solution. And this is exactly what we are seeking here. And so Nigeria is seizing the moment again to participate, to lend its voice as a very important player on the global stage to ensure that all countries of the world have a peaceful resolution to this matter. Nigeria is very consistent on that. It supports a two-state solution. That unless you do that, look at the way the conflict is already going, spilling over the borders of both Israel and Palestine. It's going to Lebanon. And we are also seeing that Iran is also being gradually, brought into the conflict. So unless this solution is found, and unless there is a diplomatic solution to it, this may engulf the entire region. And in effect, it will also engulf the entire world. Nigeria is a very important country, like I said earlier. Unless there is peace in the Middle East, there is no way Nigeria will not have also issues to contend with. Already, we are seeing movement of people around the region. Nigeria, because of its proximity, is likely to begin to draw some of the people who are escaping this conflict from. And we also have our own share of issues here. So we want all these states to live in peace, to live in harmony within secured borders so that the world can be at peace.
So that's Mohammed Malagi Idris, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, as a follow-up to what Mr. Bayo Onanuga said concerning the president's participation at that particular summit in Riyadh that has to do with Israel and Palestine. But let's move on now and come back home. Something is brewing in the offense as far as Labour is concerned. Labour has directed its members to go on a strike from December the 1st for states that are yet to implement the national minimum wage. The directive is part of the resolution of NLC after its National Executive Council meeting, where it set up a National Minimum Wage Implementation Committee to commence a nationwide assessment, mobilization and sensitization campaign. The NLC also accused the petroleum marketers, on the other hand, of inflating pump price of petrol and alleged that the marketers are exploiting Nigerians and adding to an already heightened suffering stemming from government harsh economic policies. Now, the acting chief of army staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede, has arrived in Sokoto for his maiden operational visit to 8th division area of his responsibility. The army Chief of Army Staff, General Oluyede, is expected to visit Sultan of Sokoto and meet with other relevant stakeholders within the area and also use the opportunity to address troops of Operation Fasanyama fighting terrorists in the northwest region. 5 local government areas of Sokoto State are facing the challenge of a new terror group known as Lukarawa. Meanwhile, the governor of Kebbi State, Nasser Idris, has sent a delegation to the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, to address the rising threat of new Islamic sect, Lakaruwa, whose recent attacks have claimed 15 lives in the state. In a statement by the Chief Press Secretary to the governor, Ahmed Idris, the delegation led by former governor of the state and current Minister of Economic Planning, Atiku Bagudu, included Senator Bala Ibrahim Al-Nala, the National Organizing Secretary of the All Progressives Congress, Suleiman Agungo, and former Commissioner of Justice and Attorney General of the state, Barrister Nasiru Jungu. But there's a lot that has to do with security, and that's why the Arewa Consultative Forum has called up for the urgent action of the Nigerian military to quell the uprising of Lakaruwa terror group that is wreaking havoc in Sokoto and Kebbi states in the northwest region. In a statement by its National Publicity Secretary, Professor Tuku Mohammed Abba, the forum noted that the emergence of Lakaruwa terror group in the northwest region raises serious concerns as it indicates an escalation in the devastating state of insecurity in that particular region. And from the northwest, let's head to the southwest. Yes, the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Gbetukun, has banned the Western Security Network, otherwise known as Amotekun, and other vigilante corps from participating in the November 16 governorship election in Ondo State. The directive, which was contained in a statement by the First Public Relations Officer, explains that the IGP ordered the deployment of officers from various specialized units, including Special Intervention Squad, Police Mobile Force, Counter-Terrorism Unit, Special Protection Unit, Explosive Ordnance Disposal Unit, and K9 Unit, among others. While area patrols will be conducted with police helicopters and gunboats will patrol the state's waterways and riverine area. And away from security issues, let's talk business. And this time we are heading to Kano State, where in a bid to tackle the severe flooding, erosion affecting parts of Kano State, the governor of the state, Abba Yusuf, has announced a strategic partnership with the World Bank and the federal government to implement a large-scale erosion control project in Gayawa area. During a recent visit to the Gayawa Gully erosion site, Governor Yusuf expressed his administration's readiness to address the environmental hazards that have plagued the Bulu Bala Gayawa community in Ngongo local government area, which also impacts nearby Nasarawa and Fage local government areas in the state. On international scene this time, the Office of Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has confirmed that he had spoken 3 times with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump over the tightening alliance between Israel and the United States, and also about the potential threat Iran poses to Israel's security. The statement issued by his office says he had talked to Trump about the great opportunities before Israel in the field of peace and its expansion. Those were the words from the Prime Minister's office. And now to sports, where Manchester United signed off Ruud van Nistelrooy's temporary stint in charge with a 3-0 win over Leicester on Sunday. Ruben Amorim will be in charge for the first time when United returns to the international break, or from the international break. But Van Nistelrooy was able to hand over the reins with a 4-game unbeaten run since stepping up to replace the sacked Erik ten Hag. A brace from Bruno Fernandes and a wonderful curling effort by Leandro Garnacho were enough to seal the 3 points for the Red Devils. All right, while their neighbors are struggling, United is making headway despite, what happened with Erik ten Hag. So congratulations to them, but let's see what happens with Pep. But those are the stories we've been tracking for you, say, in the last 24 hours. Will form part of our conversation for the program and the rest of the day. Bukola now joins me to bring you up to speed with what you have been talking about on our social media of choice. which is X. Bukola.
Hello again, Jeffrey.
Absolutely.
Nigerians are talking about quite a lot this morning, from checking up on Canada's immigration policy to whether or not Amotekun can participate in the Ondo election. Well, of course, in reaction to the IGP's ban. And of course, Nigeria hasn't quite gotten over the death of the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Terrorism Lagbaja. And that's where we're starting off from, Jeffrey, with news about the family head of Lagbaja saying that they regret obtaining an NDA form for Lagbaja. And, you know, that's, of course, in reaction to his untimely demise. You know, he was just 56. And who's the first user speaking this morning? Engineer Yasir is the first person writing in. And they say, I believe it's just in pain. Of course, the family is still mourning. But what more could a man ask for in service to his country? To have reached several positions, especially the COAS, that's the Chief of Army Staff. Thank you for your thoughts this morning.
We always thank the late Chief of Army Staff for his service. He was a soldier that led from the front. Alexander there says there is no need for regret. General Lagbaja was destined for greatness. He came, he saw, and he conquered. He rose through the ranks to become the most senior military commander, I guess, in the country.
And Abiodun says the man should be happy because Lagbaja got to the pinnacle of his career as COAS. He should thank God that his effort was not in vain. God giveth and God taketh. Well, there are no words that can adequately compensate for the loss of such a general, of course, who must also have been as precious to his family. If we are all talking about him, you know, in such words, of course, who knows how just precious he was to his family. And we continue to condole with the family of the Lagbaja and pray that God comforts the family at this time.
Absolutely. So from there, we talk about, we understand that Mondo Kwevalo also. We'll be talking about Baseki is missing. I don't know where Baseki. So people have been reacting to different, you know, the handover to Mondo Kwevalo is tomorrow. And
that will be the 12th of November.
Yes, 12th of November. So from midnight today or so, you know, the time is almost running out for Baseki. By the day, you know, Kwevalo was sworn in and there's a new man in charge, new sheriff in town. But talking about Obaseki missing, said by the governor-elect, some people are talking here saying it revealed that Obaseki chased, alleging that the governor had chased out government officials from the government house to give room for him to all sorts of things. But let's take your reactions. Jones, you say, how do you know he's gone missing between Friday and Sunday? Why are you looking for him desperately on weekends? What is it that can't wait till Monday when it's business hours?
Well,
okay.
So that's going to start a debate about whether or not an outgoing governor should hand over physically to an incoming governor. Is there anything in the law that says that that's a must?
I don't know.
Because it seems as if in recent times, particularly when it's an opposition party that is coming the outgoing incumbent, you know, exits the stage.
I think it should just be diplomacy. You lost, you won, you know, there's a transition, as we do at the presidential level. The outgoing will be there for the incoming, no matter who. Jonathan was there for Muhammadu Buhari. Muhammadu Buhari was there, although it's the same party. So, anyway, Bukola, you have the next one from Justice
And of course, Jeffrey, just what you've said, it's in line with the spirit of sportsmanship. You know, sometimes you win some, you lose some.
No, politicians don't do sportsmanship in something.
Thank you for that reminder. Justice Paul is the next user, and Justice Paul says, fear of the unknown. But the good news is that our police can track anyone, no matter where he or she is hidden.
Oh, well, let's move on from there. Police and I think he's going to be governor from tomorrow, so he has to stay to himself, so he can make a decision whether he's going to go after Obaseki or not. That's a different kettle of fish. So Amotekun and other vigilante corps, they've been banned from participating in Saturday's governorship election in Ondo State. You know, that same thing happened in Edo State. It's only the police that should be in charge and maybe support from the military. So the IGP has swooped into action and say, look, all of this, your network and security, whatever, just keep it at bay for now. We have a job to do on our hands. So people are reacting. Sadiq is saying, we hope and pray for the election to be peaceful, free and fair. with no loss of lives. That is what we all desire.
I like this one from Vibes, and it's one thing everyone should think about. And they say, actually, that is not a decision he can take. He didn't institute the Amotekun, and he cannot control them. His officers can only arrest anyone engaged in criminal offenses. Even the police advises everyone to be vigilant, except when they intend to rig an election. So that elicits a debate on whether or not the IGP has the powers to prevent a state police initiative from participating in the election. Even if it is clear in the electoral law, it goes to support that ongoing commentary about whether or not a state governor is the chief security officer in his state if he cannot wield the necessary amount of control on the state police command.
But in this particular case, the governor is running for the election, whether he was running or not, at the end of the day, the primary responsibility of security in an election is the police. And the police chooses to add anybody is their discretion. So
and if the chief security officer of a state is the governor and he sets up a state security outfit.
No, we're talking exclusively to the election.
To the election.
Not any other thing. After the election, you can continue whatever he wants to do.
All right, the debate continues, Jeffrey.
Okay, so this one has to do with the former governor of Lagos State and former minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, SAN, saying they used to resist the temptation to abandon Nigeria to other countries. But Fine Boy Frere says, while it's important to consider the potential and opportunities within Nigeria, many youths seek better prospects abroad due to various challenges at home. Addressing these issues might inspire more to stay and contribute to our nation's growth. Well,
Faye says, if our currency, that's the Naira, is strong enough, going outside for survival is a waste. But, of course, you can complete that.
Okay, where am I again? Okay, Supreme Clerk said, dear Fashola, Nigerian youths don't need to be told to resist the temptation to live. Instead, why not focus on creating opportunities at home? Show us the plan for meaningful job security and support our potential. That's from this guy. Go ahead.
And Crypto says, then make it economically friendly for the average youth to have something to invest their time in. Of course, he continues by writing, the policies of the government are always against anything that can liberate the unemployed and less connected youth to be financially comfortable. So what else do you want? I guess, as they say in law, ipso loquitur, the thing speaks for itself. Yeah. The economy speaks for whether or not Nigerian youths should stay or should leave. Speaking of which, our next talking point...
No, just that. It's just to add to that, Bukola, sorry. Yeah. It's people's choice. It's just giving an advice, I guess. But of course, you can't force. Even the government cannot force anybody to stay back. If things are better here, people will not run away. By their own assessment, they feel that they can get greener pasture outside the country. That's their assessment. If they choose to go, it's up to them. You can only advise and give pep talks as to whether or not. But telling people not to look for a way to survive is a different
totally out of
which
it.
is, I don't think, is what you're trying to say.
I guess if the socioeconomic conditions in Nigeria were better, were ideal in the first place, then there would be no need for that kind of counsel to Nigerian youths.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So get the country working, and all of this will not be necessary. That's what we're saying. Canada has cancelled 10-year multiple entry visa and tightened rules for entry.
Wow. Canada is the go-to place for many Nigerians.
A lot of people, especially Nigerians.
They have that 10 million jackpot plan. That should have doubled by now because of the currency rate. Who's the first writer this morning?
Ayodele is saying, I'm happy to hear this. It's a sign that we must all focus on making Nigeria better than those countries. It's time to come together to build Nigeria.
And Freedom says, this is great news. Nigerians should stop running to other countries. We must all join hands to fix this country because it's ours, and we don't expect anyone to fix it for us, if not ours. Well,
all right, Rita said most countries are closing in on our immigrants and trying to manage their little resources for the greater good of their own people. Don't ask me what my own country is doing.
And Master Dean is the last person here in this talking point, and they say the time is now. Only go there for vacation, business, partnership, tourism. I wonder if there's sarcasm or this is candor about the need for everyone to stay back and build the country. But of course, Dr. Julius Oni's story continues to inspire. How he returned to build, a health institution for Nigeria.
Okay, let's talk about a particular video that we saw online that people have been commenting on. So apparently it's a bullion van being escorted by the police and check it out. Just check out what's going on here. Yep. Okay, so you can see the escorts behind that's not a sweeper, that's behind the vehicle. So there's a bullion van, I understand, in front, and the vehicle is just trying to swerve to make sure that nobody overtakes it, and people have been commenting. So you can see the guy moving left, moving right, checking everybody who's trying to intercept, or if you want to do anyhow, you may see anyhow kind of movement, as we say it in Nigeria. This looks like that as you descend from the third mainland bridge down to Oworo area. So I think I'm familiar with this area. So that's it. Yeah. So
of course, this kind of driving is less than ideal.
I don't know whether that man is doing more. They look like they are doing more than the 80 kilometer per hour.
Apart from the 80 kilometer is the approach to driving. See the movement from one lane to another.
So there's a bullion van somewhere there, and there are vehicles. I guess they're carrying money. So whether they overdid it or they did it well, I do not know.
That's the point. This is excessive, moving from one lane, one extreme to the other extreme.
Trying to block out everybody
from overtaking the bully.
In case you want to go and pick.
Anything could have happened, in this particular circumstance if the other cars, by the side were not exercising caution.
So let's take a look at what the people are saying. So that's the video as the guy was swerving left, right, and all of that. Dedotun says, for security reasons, nobody should be keen on overtaking a bullion van. And
Jeb Daniel said, this is normal security procedure in all countries. Please calm down. They're preventing a heist.
Temi says, this thing this guy is doing is so dangerous to him more than the people behind him. He could easily lose control. And Nemeka is the last writer here. Nemeka says, what if he lost control now in past tense and things got overboard? F1 drivers never do like this. But even F1 drivers are in their own zone. They don't have to consider other drivers. Absolutely. That kind of driving was in total lack of consideration for other drivers around them. Well, I don't know what I don't know what the security protocol says, but whatever. The people have commented, some are for and against it at the end of the day, but let's be safe out there, whatever you're doing, remember that the people are more important than the money, Abi, Bukola. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll start with our very first conversation that has to do with the policies of government. This Naira for crude purchase and all of that. We'll bring it up first before we get to other conversations. Join us again.
We gather to deliberate on the pressing matters related to the sales of crude oil to domestic refineries in Nigeria, in Naira, and its implication on the approved medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper for 2024-2026, and what we should expect for 2025-2027. Additionally, we will examine shortfalls in NMPCL revenue remittances and any outstanding unremitted revenue linked to under-recoveries.
An important initiative of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu while leading and chairing the Federal Executive Council, they approved that crude be traded and refined, and the refined products be also sold for domestic consumption using the local currency. And that has already leading to huge dividends across the economy, and particularly in terms of government revenue. And so I think we need to commend and congratulate all Nigerians on being able to stay the course of this particular reform program, which portends so well for the Nigerian economy and Nigerian people, and the benefits are already coming through.
Welcome back to the program, and that's the first port of call for us this morning, the Naira for crude policy of the federal government, of course, which has been projected by Mr. President to remove the foreign exchange hurdle and, reduce pressure on the Naira. Of course, in pursuit of this particular story, we've also reached out to the crude oil refiners to see just how democratic this policy is beyond the crude for Naira for crude sale to Dangote refinery, to see how it spreads also to other refiners. Of course, some of the reports that we're getting in that regard, they're not so encouraging, but we hope to bring them on the show subsequently such that they can speak for themselves. But what also is the impact of this policy, amongst others, on other aspects of the economy? Joining us to have this conversation this morning is economist Mr. Kelvin Emmanuel. Good morning and welcome, Mr. Emmanuel, to the program.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming through. So let's start with, some of the concerns expressed on the floor of the Senate. We heard Senator Sani Musa speaking there on what it would mean for the medium-term expenditure framework, that is usually projected for about 2 years, 2024 to 2026. And of course, we also know that the annual budget is always predicated on the amount of the crude oil per barrel sold in dollars. So what are your projections in this regard?
Well, I'll tell you that since January of 2024, NNPC has barely remitted dividends to the Federation account. I think that's a source of concern for Nigerian Senate. They've been remitting taxes as a statutory for all companies registered under the Company and Allied Matters Act. But dividends, they've not been remitting because, NNPC is a private company owned 100% by the federal government of Nigeria, the federating units, but they've not been remitting dividends. When they did declare profits for the 2023 financial year for lifting 196 million barrels of crude oil, as against 275 million barrels of crude oil they were supposed to lift. I'd mentioned that those profits were paper profits. The NNPC put out a statement that said, that this is the highest profits they've ever declared since PIA was announced in 2021. And I said they are paper profits because they can't produce the money to the government. And then a few weeks after, they came out and acknowledged that they were owing international traders $6.8 billion through modified carrier agreements that have been structured for vendor financing to swap Nigeria's crude oil under the 196 million barrels, which is supposed to be 275, by the way, for bringing in PMS into Nigeria. And that the profits that they declared were actually used to defray the cost of subsidy, And so the Senate is right to be concerned. This Senate Committee on Finance is right to be concerned about the Naira-based crude oil swaps. However, I'll tell you that with the introduction of Dangote refinery and the deal that has been struck, even if the government has not been 100% compliant with that arrangement in delivering the cargoes that were expected, because anywhere between 10 and 12 million barrels of crude oil were expected on a monthly basis under that plan. The government has not been very compliant. And as a matter of fact, not all the cargoes under that plan is actually supplied in Naira. I think only about 50 or 60% of the cargoes are supplied in Naira, despite the fact that the compliance rate is anywhere between 45 and 50% of the 12 million barrels on a monthly basis. You expect that if the government achieves full compliance under that plan agreed by the technical subcommittee, you're going to see anywhere around 8 trillion naira in 2025 remitted to the Federation account directly. And that will be remitted, the transparency will be better, because no longer will NNPC be able to tell the federal government of Nigeria that they are deferring subsidy, because at the current retail recommended retail price of premium motor spirit in Nigeria, NNPC is not paying any under recovery. And this is the reason, one of the reasons why I have encouraged and have been a strong advocate against continuing what I call the rackets of bringing in imported products into Nigeria at a landing cost that is not defined. The landing price at which they bring in products into Nigeria is actually the landing price quoted for premium gasoline. But when you look at the quality of gasoline brought, it's far from premium. So there's a disconnect in terms of the honesty or price discovery in terms of the landing cost of per liter of PMS into Nigeria. We need to go towards backward integration and realize that at 32 million liters that Dangote refinery is producing today has the capacity to feed Nigeria, because Nigeria doesn't consume 55 million liters of PMS as bandied around by the government.
So let me quickly follow up on that. So can we afford to can we afford the Naira for crude transaction if we still require so much more dollars to offset the debt? On the one hand, the debt that the NNPCL is owing its own international oil partners, and of course the other debt that Nigeria is owing, to its other international partners across the country.
Well, you see, if you look at the crude intervention stock is 445,000 barrels of crude oil that was set aside under the Domestic Crude Oil Supply Obligation, Sections 109 of the Petroleum Industry Act. It's in the law. If you look at it, you will realize that in 2023, Nigeria did 537 million barrels of crude oil under the crude oil fiscalized output. Nigeria is supposed to have 51.3% of that output at 275 million barrels. That's why I said 196 million that they are lifting is not the true north of what they are supposed to lift. 10 years ago, Nigeria was doing fiscalized crude oil output of anywhere between 750 and 800 million barrels. It's dropped from 2.1 million barrels, 2.2 million barrels per day down to 1.4, 1.35, and so forth. So if you say, can we afford, under the crude oil program, Naira-based crude oil sales, you're looking at 144 million barrels of crude oil on a yearly basis under that program. And you're looking at the fact that Nigeria is supposed to be lifting anywhere between 275 and 300 million barrels of crude oil on a yearly basis. So Nigeria can definitely afford that program, because if this is done right, and if we stop giving FX to importers to bring in substandard products into Nigeria, what you're going to see is you're going to see less pressure on even the domestic refiner looking for dollars to pay for crude oil feedstock in Nigeria, which is, part of the issues that we're currently having with the exchange rate. Nigeria does not have the external reserves to do balance of payments. So you have to stop putting too much pressure. Because if you give crude oil feedstock to the refiner refines, it supplies the market. The excess is going to export. Diesel is going to export, because Nigeria can consume the diesel that it produces on a daily basis 100%. Aviation fuel is going to export. Non-transportation fuels like polypropylene, polyethylene crystals from petrochemical feedstock is going to export. All of those derivatives, petroleum coke is going to export. It's going to bring it as net export proceeds. Because now you're moving your strategy, your midstream strategy, from producing crude oil, exporting raw crude oil, to giving some of that crude oil to your refiner to produce. He supplies your markets. Yeah, he exports, he brings the dollars he sells from exporting to your markets to do balance of payment through autonomous NAFEX market to do balance of payments. So there is enough dollars in circulation to see that the exchange rate is balanced. Today, the external reserve, the net external reserve, the central bank keeps banding $40 billion. I'll tell you, net external reserves is not more than $6 billion, because the CBN, their balance sheet is encumbered. The net external reserves you have with their external asset managers, which are about 6 banks, 6 international banks, is not more than $6 billion. So your net external reserve is practically not up to your 1-year balance of payments. How do you stabilize your exchange rate? You need the companies who produce on a massive and commercial scale to produce, to export, and bring dollars back for you to do those balance of payment settlements. So yes, we can afford it. And yes, we can go forward to increasing both the tax and non-tax to GDP ratio and reduce the deficit financing in the budget, which is very, very critical. Because if you look at the fact that NNPC has not remitted any money since January, and you consider the impact that has on how much revenue the government has generated for 2024 to how much deficit it has, 28 trillion naira, which is its budget for 2024, then you understand why our debt to GDP ratio is currently at 52%, 12% higher than the fiscal responsibility ratio set by the Fiscal Responsibility Commission.
All right, Mr. Emmanuel, we'll talk about this gross and net reserve that is incumbent that you put at $6 billion. But I guess the reason for bucking the trend in trying to sell crude in Naira is perhaps for the general population or consumers like me, is to make sure that this is available as much as possible, is affordable as much as possible, lessen pressure on FX so that imports, which we're highly dependent on, is reduced as much as possible. I'm talking about strengthening the Naira as a byproduct of all of this. But let's go back to the books in terms of the cash flow of the NNPCL. So from what you know, because NNPCL has always said perhaps the reason why they are not remitting dividends is because they are defraying the cost of subsidy or their shortfall. Now that is out of the way. So is NNPCL still being owed by the federal government, or the federal government is owing NNPCL? That's the first question.
Well, so I've always, Geoffrey, I've always asked for the federal government to order forensic audit into the books of NNPCL because, if, for example, NNPC is going to be sent to the markets, it first has to determine the actual state of its balance sheets where anybody is going to touch it with a 10-foot pole. So if you order like an audit, a forensic audit, not just an audit, a forensic audit into the books of NNPCL, and you look at the activities of Duke Oil, before Duke Oil was transformed into NNPC Trading. And then you look at the activities of NNPC Trading, the activities of NUPIMS, the activities of NEPL, as regards using Nigeria's crude oil feedstock to do swap for modified carrier agreements to bring in PMS into Nigeria, which is basically what they call vendor financing program. What are you going to find? Are you going to find a situation where the crude oil that is swapped for PMS is actually a value match? So the amount of PMS that Nigeria gets, is it equivalent to the amount of crude oil it gives to international oil traders? You know, a curious thing I found, Geoffrey, in the MCA, the structure, the curious thing I found is that I found out that the difference between 51.3%, which is the cumulative average of what NNPCs are entitled to as a joint venture holder of Nigeria's oil and gas assets upstream for deep water, mid-water, and onshore assets, to 36.7%. With the difference is 275 minus 196, which is about 79 million barrels. When I did the numbers, I multiplied by the official selling price for crude oil for 2023, which was $83 US. I found out that the 79 million barrels, which I think the government should question and ask, where did it go to? Multiplied by official selling price, actually $6.5 billion. It's almost equivalent to what international traders say they are owing. They are being owed, you know. So the question I have is, how do you lift 196 million barrels? We're not being told where 79 million barrels has gone to, because you're supposed to leave 275 and the official selling price at $83, and you say you don't have money to pay the traders. So you have to order a forensic audit on the books, on the balance sheet of Duke Oil, which is now NNPC Trading, New PIMS, NEPL, for NNPC Retail, for you to determine who is owing who. So if NNPC is owing the federal government, or the federal government is owing NNPC.
Okay, so for now, we're not sure who is owing who as it is. But I want to break it, I want to go further as it affects all of us. So it may be a refresher course, because so that Nigerians will have a collective and general frame of reference, because this can be technical to a large extent. So let's go back from the very beginning. When the policy was implemented, the federal government saying, now, let's begin to sell crude oil, not in dollars, let's sell it in Naira. In terms of the overview, how was this supposed to benefit the Nigerian states and citizens who are consuming the end product? When we understand this, then we can understand why this is an important conversation. So help us out.
Well, you know, under the Naira-based crude oil sales, the intention basically was for, you know, crude oil to be sold to domestic refiner in Naira based on sections 109 of the PIA, and for the government to agree on a commercial framework where they will do a swap on that. You know, the government gets a value match of a certain amount of PMS. But then the question is, number one, are the terms of those agreements being complied with? This was the reason why I said the level of compliance is low. Number two, is there an existing commercial framework that has been agreed between the federal government and the refinery, you know, on this structure? You know, so, and number three, the feedstock that is even being given to the refiner, is he actually giving in Naira? That's a question we should ask. The answer is no. So, you know, it's easy for people to say, oh, Naira-based crude oil sales, Dangote refinery gets crude oil in Naira. But what are the actual details of what is going on right now under that program? It doesn't appear like the government is complying with the terms agreed in the program, because NNPC will come back to you and say, oh, they don't have the crude oil.
Kelvin, just a moment. So are you saying that that policy has not been implemented, or is not? Is it that it has not been implemented, or is ineffective? Which of them is a problem here?
It's not being complied with to the letter, Geoffrey. Under the Naira-based crude oil sales, the Dangote refinery is supposed to be getting anywhere between 385,000 to 400,000 barrels of crude oil on a daily basis. He's not getting that. Yeah, even the amount of feedstock. Let me define it for you, Geoffrey. 385 to 400,000 barrels per day is anywhere between 11.5 to 12 million barrels on a monthly basis. It's probably getting anywhere around 40 to 50% of that. Even out of that 40 to 50% today, yeah, about 50% of the 50% he's getting that the technical subcommittee agreed on is actually sold to him in US dollars, not Naira. This is the reality. So is the government coming to tell the people the truth about it so that you don't put the blame on the Dangote refinery? Because the blame is not on the Dangote refinery.
So, Mr. Emmanuel, if I get you correctly, you say that we can afford this policy if every other thing in the books is taken care of. But I have to revisit that question in a different way. If we're currently producing 1.3 million barrels per day as at September, and at that Senate hearing where the Senate raised concerns about the impact of this policy on the budgetary framework, they go into a closed-door session. Where is the accountability element in this, such that we could have heard the questions that would have been put through to the NNPC? How many barrels of crude per day are we currently producing? What can we afford, to sell to Dangote refinery, such that we can still meet our obligations to our partners in the international community? I wonder if these, aspects of the conversation are as critical, to this conversation that we are having as well, Mr. Emmanuel.
Well, if you look at it, out of the 1.35 to 1.4 million barrels per day, Nigeria is getting anywhere around maybe 700,000 barrels on a daily basis. 51.3% of that output is due to the government. The Senate, is very unfortunate because I'm extremely disappointed with the National Assembly. You look at the Project Gazelle deal where they staked 164 million barrels of crude oil in exchange for $3.4 billion in cash, through what is called financialization of your assets. Yeah. When you look at the official selling price for 2023 and the average of 2024, 45 million barrels of crude oil will pay back that loan with interest. 45 million. Let me repeat. 45 million barrels of crude oil will pay back the $3.4 billion loan that the government took through Afrexim. Afrexim funded is a part of that loan. It will pay back that loan with the interest that was agreed at about 11.85%, country risk premium, plus the 6%, so for secured overnight financing rate. So you have 5.85% as country risk premium, you have 6% as secured overnight financing rate, which totals 11.85% on $3.4 billion. 45 million barrels of crude oil payback. Well, how much did they stake? They staked 164 million. 164 million barrels. Right? So you just do your calculation, 164 million by official selling price, just put it at $80 per barrel, for example, and ask, where's the money going to? I'll tell you what, under the structure of that deal, they set up an offshore debt service reserve account in a tax haven that is not subject to appropriation or oversight by the National Assembly. Where was the National Assembly when they did that? Why didn't the Senate Committee on Finance raise, an issue with that? Why didn't he raise alarm and call them for this thing and say, this is not going to go, it's not going to pass? Where were they? They were quiet. They were all quiet. That is part of the debt that is currently being repaid. You have Project Eagle, you have Project Bison, you have Project Yield. In 2019, when Melegiari became GCE of NNPC, I think the first loan that was structured was actually monies that were raised to pay Nigeria's share of equity in the Train 7. NLNG was opening FID on Train 7. Nigeria owns 49% of NLNG. NNPC is the nominee shareholder on behalf of the federal government of Nigeria. On the board of NLNG, they needed to make capital contribution. The first loan that was structured as a modified carry agreement where you secure cash from a multilateral development bank and financiers overseas, and then you tie a well with a specific number of barrels on a day as repayment with a moratorium period, was to pay Nigeria's share in the financing of Train 7 to increase the output by NLNG from 22 million metric tons to 30 million metric tons per annum. All of those deals, as the Senate opened a public inquiry to investigate the structure of those deals and see that Nigerians are not getting the short end of the stick, because all all the commitments NNPC has to pay traders, to pay multilateral development banks through international traders at their collectors came from all of those that have been structured. And in total, between 2019 and 2024, about $12 billion of that has been structured. Where's the National Assembly?
All right, Mr. Emmanuel, that's a big question for the National Assembly, and I hope that people like you will be called so that these questions can be asked as well. I'm quite curious as to whose table this responsibility should lie, because it looks like there's a lot of indebtedness across board, but we want to put it in the right places, because I know that when we took that 3.3 from Afrexim Bank, the statement from the federal government was to say that it was defraying taxes and royalties in advance. That's the language that was used at the end of the day. So that's why I'm trying to look at all the elements and encumbrances to know who is owing who and how much is being owed, besides all of these new concerns you've raised. But let's go even further and deeper into the conversation. I don't know what you know that is going on with the Port Harcourt refinery, because we need as much of this as possible if we want to be net exporter. Perhaps we can't depend on Dangote refinery alone. It's great with the backward integration, but the issue of energy security has to have multiple suppliers. What do you know is going on in that end as far as the refineries are concerned? Because I will always stay where the average Nigerians stay and are concerned about. They are not interested in all the big grammar we can speak and all the technicalities we can put forward. They're just interested in how they can get fuel as quickly as possible, as cheaply as possible, if that word is convenient for that particular sector right now with the deregulation. So what is going on with that area?
Well, Geoffrey, it's an interesting question you asked, because I've always said on record that the government-owned refineries are dead on arrival. Government has not proven over the last more than 60 years of having the capacity to manage business. Nigeria discovered struck first oil in Oloibiri in Ogbia local government in Bayelsa State in 1957, 67 years after Geoffrey. Nigeria's refiners are importing crude oil to refine. So the government-owned refineries are comatose, they are dead, Geoffrey. They are not going to come back to life. The NNPC, a Port Harcourt refining company, a PHRC, is a subsidiary of NNPC. They promised deadlines, more than 8 deadlines. They've not come up. You're not hearing anything from it. At the most, maybe they'll convert it into a blending plant to pure off-spec petrol. I don't know. But I don't believe that those refineries are salvageable. I think the government needs to strip it down as a dead asset that is drawing cash, because you look at it's consuming anywhere between 75 and 100 billion naira in maintenance costs, staff costs that are not producing anything on a yearly basis. So the government should forget about it and focus on strengthening the regulations and framework for supply of feedstock to commercial refiners, and see how it can manage and regulate the laws that is set out in PI. I don't think that those refineries are going to come back to life. A few months ago, I reiterated again, I said those refineries are dead and they are gone forever. The NNPC came, made promise. So far, they've missed 2 deadlines since that. Where is it? So I think we need to move on. We need to accept the reality.
So what was going on?
We need to stop being
So all the deadline that was given, were they all political statements, or so that we're not hasty in conclusion?
Of course, they were political statements. We're too attached to legacy assets. Ajaokuta steel plants, several other legacy assets that should be let go of. And government comes, makes promises, says it's FEC has approved allocation to turnaround maintenance, and it ends up as a drain down the hole. 12 trillion naira so far expended. At the exchange rate at which these monies were approved by FEC, the conversion is anywhere between $22 and $24 billion. That is enough to build another Dangote refinery in Lagos. So what are we talking about, Geoffrey? We need to let go. We need to stop being emotionally invested in those dead government refineries, because they are not coming back to life. It's just an expedition in futility.
Well, Mr. Emmanuel, some would say that maybe the Port Harcourt refinery is in fact working and has in fact produced petrol, but for some reason, government has chosen not to announce that the Port Harcourt refinery has begun working and is able to produce petrol. Whatever that reason is, we do not know. And, you know, speculations would be a perfect waste of time at this particular point in time. But the overall, whatever policy the government is implementing is for the benefit of the people, is for Nigeria to exit this regime of importation of petrol. But what we're seeing is a price dispute between, on the one hand, Dangote refinery and you know, major marketers, independent marketers. So what is the essence of this Naira for crude policy if we're still importing and if we're having this continuous price war, you know, between the marketers of the product itself?
So, you know, the marketers of the product, the price war we're having is because they don't seem to understand what sections 317, 7 to 11 of the PIA says on the quotas that the regulator and MDPRA should give to marketers to be able to lift and import products into Nigeria, and the quality specifications, which are ground rules. The example I gave to give Nigerians context on this is in pharmaceutical manufacturing, there's what is called good manufacturing practice, GMP, set by the World Health Organization, WHO. There is a basic framework and minimum standard expected of pharmaceutical manufacturers globally. It's a basic framework. If you go outside of that WHO guidelines, then you're subject to punitive measures from regulators all over the world. And the question is, do you say that because you're trying to deliver pharmaceutical products at a cheaper price to consumers, you're going to risk their health? Because poor quality PMS actually has health implications. Sulfur, that's a very high sulfur. When you use too much sulfur to cure PMS and you have sulfur level above the framework that has been set by the regulator, it actually has chronic long-term health impacts on the people. And this is something you will realize if a public health inquiry were commissioned into the effect of high sulfur in petrol on the health of Nigerians, not just their cars, but on their health, you know. So, because generator fumes, of course, and you know, we have a lot of Nigerians who use generators. So there's a minimum framework that has been set, and that framework was decided by ECOWAS in 2020 at the convention they held that says that the sulfur level for PMS that has been agreed by all ECOWAS member countries is actually 50 parts per million, 50 ppm. That's the minimum framework. The PMS imported into Nigeria, if it's subjected to actual ASTM tests, ASTM is a gasoline testing standard that was developed by the American Society of Testing and Materials. It's the most respected globally. It's subjected to ASTM tests. Yeah, and there is a level of verification to verify the results is actually higher than 500 and 1,000 parts per million. So what's the gap between 50 and over 500 and 1,000 parts per million? That's number one. On the pricing framework, okay, you have to understand that when you deregulate the market according to sections 205 of the PIA, you have that framework go under the Platts system of pricing. Platts is a global system that prices LNG, that prices PMS, that prices LPG, that prices crude oil all over the world. There is a basic amount per metric ton for PMS on real-time basis, and that is determined by mostly location, the blend of the crude, and the price of crude oil on the global markets per time. Yeah. So you have your Platts, you have your premium that is imposed, and then you have all your logistics and taxes. So if you look at the PMS pricing framework, you realize that other than the Platts and premium, there's everything from finance, cost and demassa, there's shuttle vessel, there's bulk storage terminal or tank farms that you have, you know, there's demurrage. And this is primarily because Nigeria does not have pipeline infrastructure to evacuate PMS from a refiner. Musimi and Atlas Cove and Moribond, they're no longer in operation. And in 2019, NNPC, you know, you put it on hold because there was no sabotage of that pipe. So when you look at the PMS pricing framework, you have to consider, and to the question you asked, yeah, the government supplies most of its crude oil, the refiner buys crude oil in US dollars. It has to work under that Platts system. Under the technical subcommittee, is there a commercial framework for the PMSC that the government supplies crude oil for in Naira? There's no commercial framework. These are the questions the Executive Council has to answer.
All right. It appears that that document is critical, for studying to understand, all of the dynamics of the policy. Either it's a Naira for crude, or in fact, if it's the price war that is ongoing between Dangote and the petroleum marketers. Thank you so much, Mr. Kelvin Emmanuel, for your insights on this conversation and for always coming through.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, Mr. Kelvin Emmanuel is an economist. From the economy now, we turn our attention to security, and that will come your way after this break. Join us again.
Welcome back. Concerns have been raised about and around this new terrorist organization, Lakurawa, in the northern part of the country, especially the northwest region. And there's been loads of movement in terms of the military hierarchy. 2002, we had this issue of Boko Haram. And then they went into full swing somewhere around 2010. And we're still struggling with the impact. And then at some point, there was a splinter group called ISWAP, or ISWAP, as some people choose to call it. And now we have another terrorist organization on our hands. What is going on as far as this is concerned? So we're being joined by the National Publicity Secretary of Arewa Consultative Forum, Professor Tukur Mohammed. He joins us via Zoom from Kaduna State. Prof, thank you so much for coming on the program. Hello, Prof, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely. I can hear you loud and clear. So, Prof, let's begin with what you are seeing in the region. We've had statements from the GHQ, the Defense Headquarters. We've also seen that the CDS has been called upon by the Kebbi State government to say, look, something is going on. People are being killed within our zone or our area. We've also had the issues that are going on in Sokoto as well. So, maybe just a quick overview, because this is new to a lot of people. We're familiar with Boko Haram, ISWAP, and then Lakurawa has joined the fray. What is going on?
What is going on, I think, is an escalation in the insecurity situation, especially in the northwest part of Nigeria. Actually, Lakurawa is not a new group. About 2018, 2019, they appeared in Tangaza local government area, which is close to the border with Niger. The security forces, or at least we thought the security forces had gotten rid of them. They disappeared. Only now that we think progress has been made in tackling insecurity, they now emerge, and they have seemed to have emerged with ferocity. As you know, about 3-4 days ago, they murdered about 15 people in Naira town in Kebbi State, specifically in Argungu, in Augi local government of the Argungu Emirate. Now, what we have heard, they are also in parts of Sokoto State, and it seems that at first they seem to be attacking the bandits that have been there. But of course, their methods are the same. They want to impose a strict Islamic, their version of Islamic codes, forcing people to wear beard, forcing people to not to sell or smoke cigarettes, and all kinds of things. And they seem to be well armed. So it's alarming in general because they are new, and the reports suggest that they may be affiliated with some Islamic organizations in the Maghreb or the northern Sahel. So overall, we see it as an escalation of the terrorist activities in this part of the country. And it's very alarming because, like I said, it seems that the army has been having some successes in Zamfara State. which has before now been the epicenter. But the emergence of this new group, it's a thing of worry. One would have thought more than just announce that the defense headquarters is aware of their presence. One would have liked to see a report that they have been decimated, but it is what it is. But we are hoping that everybody concerned is taking it very seriously.
So, Prof, the big question will be, what is it in that region and that area that makes the terrorist groups to have ease of access and literally incubate and become full-blown problem to all of us? Because that's where we start the conversation from, in terms of culture, in terms of religion and all of these things. What is it in the area that is really enticing for them to come through and begin to make this strong inroads and impression?
First and foremost is the porosity of the border. And we also have to remember the characteristics of the international border. It is artificial, made up by colonialism. In many places in this part of the country, you see that the international boundary cuts through right across a settlement. So the ease of movement is there. These are routes that have been there historically. It is actually the border that meets the people. So that is one aspect. The other aspect, of course, is like everything in the border areas of Africa, that people move in and out and they do not use approved routes. They use what we can call the bush paths and so on, which allow them access. And then, of course, there is the cultural proximity. Except for the dressing, except for language, which are distinct, you can easily blend into the population. The other thing we have to put into account is also some of the economic challenges in neighboring African countries. Climate change and so on is pushing these groups southwards, and of course, loose law enforcement allow them to move. So it's a combination of factors. And of course, this is a rich agricultural area. It has always been the food basket for many communities to the north of Nigeria. So as they are pushed by factors there, they are now pulled into Nigeria. And like I said, the nature of the border, we don't have natural barriers such as mountains, such as rivers, and so on. It's flat land. And so people can move easily. You don't need much logistics. Plus, the other thing is, I think also we don't have enough personnel to man the borders. It's an extensive border, and you need actually to send in troops that will man this border. Otherwise, people will come in the daytime, in the night, and so on. And like I said, when they come armed, fully armed with sophisticated weapons, villagers have no choice than to submit to them. And like I said, they employ terror, murder, their own version of law and order, and so on. But especially when villagers are not manned and the security agencies are not there or they are not adequate, you know, it opens the room for all kinds of problems coming into the country.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to, talk us through what we can learn from the impact of the recent coup in Niger and how it perhaps infiltrated into neighboring Kebbi State and, brought us to where we are today, which is pretty much what the Director Defense Media Operations spoke to when he informed the nation about the emergence of this new terror group. But you seem to have touched on that. I was also wondering how, this new group was able to overcome what may have been the language barrier, because in your statement, you let us know that they speak French, that they're foreigners, and they speak a certain Arabic dialect. But we know that Fulani is spoken and Hausa is spoken in most of Nigeria's north. So I was wondering how relations were to the effect that this terror group was able to gain ground in Kebbi State, and you say they're also in Sokoto as well. But besides those things that we're learning about the infiltration of this Lakrawa, how can we prevent a further infiltration into neighboring states in the north?
Massive security presence. You see, the problem in Niger and other Sahelian countries is also contributing to this place. We have alluded to that. Of course, we know what happened with the threat by ECOWAS last year, led by Nigeria, because our president is the chairman of ECOWAS, to invade Niger. And of course, this brought a lot of bad blood. So on. But we thought we had overcome that. The threat to invade Niger did not happen. Earlier this year, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, visited Niger, and we were happy. Actually, the Area Consultative Forum issued a statement welcoming the gesture, looking at it as some detente, defreezing of problems in the first place. And we thought Nigeria should liberate that. But also you can add the problem in Libya, which the Western countries have left unsolved. Libya is still unstable. Arms will flow. People will flow across. And I said, these are people who are extremely mobile. What we would want to see is a completely new strategy. One, there is no doubt we need cooperation with our neighbors. In particular, the multinational task force that has been operating in the Chad area, I think, will be broadened to include northwest Nigeria, where again our borders meet with Niger and the Republic of Benin. We need cooperation with this, and so I would have preferred to see a massive ECOWAS multinational force against these bandits. But like I said, of course, the political problem in Niger, in Burkina Faso and Mali are not making things easy. And of course, the problem in ECOWAS, has brought about much bad blood. So I think we need to reset our relationship. All these countries, Niger, Nigeria, Chad, Burkina Faso, are under existential threat. And we need to deal with the problem from all angles. That is, all the countries need to get together to see that this problem is an existential threat to absolutely everyone. And so we need such cooperation. Of course, we have problems with the natural environment, climate change, making things difficult for people, and so on and so forth. But that also suggests that we need to sit up and take this threat seriously. When I say we, I have the core Sahelian countries as well as Nigeria. We are contagious. And like I said, the borders are porous. They are artificial. There are no barriers and so on, except for the sun. And anybody can walk on the sun. It's not as if it's Mount Everest that or some mountain ranges that you have to overcome. So that's the basic problem. And so our security forces need to, the armed forces, and including, of course, the civil defense. And I'm sure, of course, in every local government in these areas, the Department of State Security Services is there. We also have the National Intelligence Agency. We need to marshal resources. That's number one. Number two, there is no escaping the fact that we need to cooperate with our neighbors, convince them that this existential threat is mutual. We don't want the Sahel or the northern parts of the country or anywhere in the country to become a no man's land, that anybody could just come in and out, and so on. No doubt, reports from the villagers suggested that these people, from their dressing, from their language, from their demeanor, and so on, are not Nigerian. In fact, you can say even Niger, these are mostly people from the northern parts of Niger and neighboring countries.
All right. Prof, you made a very, very important comment talking about let's not get to where it's now going to be a no man's land. My curiosity has to do with what the government can do to gain the trust of the people to support them? Because I think that's where that collapse is happening. Because I heard I think the spokesperson of the DHQ talking about maybe the community knew and did not say anything. I don't know what is the level of relationship between community and law enforcement, especially the military, as far as that region is concerned. That what can be done to strengthen that relationship, Prof?
It's a mixture. It's a cocktail of problems. Let me first of all suggest that the communities they react to the claim that the communities are not cooperating. You see, when someone invades a rural community in the night with sophisticated guns, people have no choice than to submit. So it's not that the people are willingly submitting to those people. They are forced at gunpoint, sophisticated arms. That's number one. Number two, you see, we should not rely on only the kinetic military approach. The communities need enlightenment. We need to organize the people in these communities as vanguard, as early warning, so that they pass information to the right quarters. Of course, we don't have the Chinese army, for example, that could man every kilometer on the border. But we can devise means whereby information, intelligence is passed from the villagers to the authorities concerned. Fortunately, in northern Nigeria, there is a series of commands. Every traditional ruler knows every inch of their area, and they can serve as fast level of intelligence gathering. Of course, nowadays we have digital transmission of information. Almost every village you go, there are telephones, and messages can be passed surreptitiously through the tradition, through the hierarchy of traditional rulers. And then we need, therefore, we need to bring the traditional institution into that. But again, we have also talked about the role of informants within these villages. When you have people who are benefiting from the little they can get from these terrorists, especially in times of economic difficulties, it's very easy. We have seen in Katsina State and other places, for example, village heads, traditional rulers cooperating with bandits and so on. We need to uproot the informants. So the problem is becoming organic. And if it is organic, we need to uproot it from the beginning, from the roots, so that communities have to be mobilized to see this threat, to not look at what they could get out of these people, but what it means for another. Just last year, I think, the Katsina State Governor, Dr. Rada, reported that these guys came in, bribed a village head who allowed them to come, and they kill about over 30 people. Again, in the last 2 weeks, I think, we have seen another who was an informant, a village head, to bandits who got 25 million naira, and he claimed that he was given only 100,000 naira. So this ties into the economic difficulties people are getting in. So information and cooperation with insurgents become very, very cheap. I mean, I can't understand how you allow people to come and they collect ransom of 25 million naira only to be given 100 million naira, 100,000 naira. We need to take both the kinetic and the non-kinetic approach. And I think massive community mobilization is called for. We have security consultants who can go into these villages, teach these villagers simple, basic intelligence gathering and transmission.
You know, Professor Mohammed, so much more, you know, to glean from what's playing out. Initially, insurgency was restricted to Nigeria's northeast, you know, with only 3 states being involved. And then we had, you know, banditry, become a result of that, affecting majority of Nigeria's northwest, Kaduna. But now we're seeing states that may have been removed from, that impact now being included, states like Kebbi that wasn't affected by banditry and insurgency in the past. Are you getting any sense that the governors in Nigeria's north are in full cognizance of the real developmental challenges that are impacting this, that are fueling rather this challenge of insecurity? And what would be your message, to them at this critical time?
First of all, I think really the governors are familiar, are in the know about what is happening. Just about 3 months ago in June, the governors of the Northeast formed what they call the Northwest Security Summit in Katsina, whereby Jigawa, Kano, Kaduna, Sokoto, Zamfara, and Kebbi attended this seminar, and there was a strong resolve that the governors need to work together. So as far as knowledge of what is happening, I'm in no doubt that everybody knows. But the other thing is, the next thing is what is being done now, or what is to be done. Again, there is a constitutional problem. The deployment of armed forces is completely the prerogative of the federal government. The state governments are there. They can have some vigilantes, they can form community guards, but passing through these villages, you will see that the community guards, they are not armed. The weapons they have are mostly for hunting animals and so on. So, like I said earlier, it's a cocktail of problems. Constitutional, logistics, geographical, social, and economic. All this, like I said, is a potent mixture that we need to tackle it from various perspectives. Yeah, even if the state governors want to do something urgent, they need the buy-in of the federal government, especially with the deployment of trained troops.
Prof. Umar, thank you for coming on the program and for insights as well. Professor Tukur Muhammad is the National Secretary, or Publicity Secretary rather, of Arewa Consultative Forum. He joined us via Zoom from Kaduna State. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so very much. The name is Tukur Muhammad Baba. Thank you so very much. It's been my pleasure. And we hope to see the end of this problem as soon as possible, so that life can return to what normality we can afford. Thank you so very much.
Absolutely. Totally agree with you on that. Thank you. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk the Grammys. Nigerians are making quite a big inroad as far as that new category is concerned. Correspondent who covers entertainment, the chief himself, will be here to bring us up to speed as to what we should be expecting and what this is all about. Join us again.
Welcome back, and as we move on to the softer side of things, we're looking at Nigeria's nominations in the Grammys. And by now, Nigeria is very comfortable in a number of categories in the annual Grammys. Jeffrey calls it the music's biggest night. So what should Nigerians expect from this year's nominations, and what are you saying about those nominations? Jeffrey has thrown a shade at me this morning that I don't know the names on the list. So I'm going to prove him wrong. There's Wizkid, there's Davido, there's Yemi Alade, there is Tems, and there is Rima. Bidemi, I got it right.
Yes, there's one more. There's one more.
joins us, by the way.
You didn't mention.
Last year, after the disappointment,
She didn't mention Ashake.
Ashake, yes.
Yes, I think she lumped Ashake and Wizkid together with MMS. But, Ashake is actually the owner of the song. Yes, so from the disappointment of last year's outing,
Why they threw us under the bus?
I'm telling you, and I told you guys that it's just a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before we dominate again. And you see, I feel like I'm a soothsayer right now.
It's your space. It's your space, absolutely. So I'm super excited because that particular category, I'm looking for that category. where we have all Nigerians.
Oh yes, the best
African music
performance.
Yes. So let's begin with where we also were before, because I know that in the global music, none of us was nominated. Angelique Kidjo. Where we have Angelique Kidjo, global music.
Yes, the global music album. That's where you have Rema and Thames.
No, there's another category. I'll get to it. But
best global music performance.
Yes,
we don't have a nomination.
The best global music performance. That's what I was talking about. So let's leave the one where that we're ousted. Let's stay with the one that we have. Let's talk about Thames.
See, music in Africa is we own it.
Yep.
Pop music in Africa, it's Nigerian, it's our space. We do with it what we will. And you could see the result of that happening now with the Grammy nominations. 5 nominations slots, all 5 with Nigerians in it. So it speaks to how far we've gone in that space. When the nominations were announced, I saw comments from some music heads from Ghana, South Africa saying, oh no, this, that. But they should go and wait, their time will come. They should go and wait, their time will come.
After all, last year we were nominated and Tyler took it away from us, so it's our turn.
Yes.
So this is one Grammy that we know a Nigerian must win.
A Nigerian at least one.
So in which category? The African category that Jeffrey's talking about?
Yes, in that where all nominees
are Nigerians. In that
except for one with Chris Brown, which is sensational. But we have 2 Nigerians featured on that track.
We hope Chris Brown doesn't win best.
That even if that category wins, then we get 2 trophies, because Davido is going to get a trophy, Loj is going to get a trophy.
Absolutely.
So either way, it's
not disrespect to Chris Brown, but let's Nigeria win.
So Wizkid has been nominated, Davido has been nominated, and we know the battle that has been on between both music giants in recent times. Is this going to further pit them against each other if one of them gets a trophy and the other doesn't?
So it comes with the territory. And I'm sure it's something that they are all also ready for. It's the fans that are always on the edge and are always, because in all honesty, I see no reason why you can't enjoy a Wizkid song and enjoy a Davido song. So it's always going to happen. And if both of them don't win, it's going to be, oh, Wizkid fans are going to be like, oh, we already have one in the bag already. It's you that you don't have any. So, you know, it's always, either ways, it's going to spur and ignite that rivalry again.
So let's talk about Thames. Thames has 3 nominations. So Thames is very, I think she's had, in terms of nomination, Thames should have been nominated indirectly about 13, 12 or so.
Is it
I think
about
6?
6, okay, 6. Now, if you look at other features she's had, not directly, I mean, some of the projects she's been on.
So the way the Grammy works, before you're eligible for a trophy, you must have contributed significantly to a work. So, for instance, if an album is nominated and you contributed to a track or to 2 tracks from like a body of work that has about 15 tracks in the album, you're not eligible for to win a trophy. So you must have contributed significantly. I think about maybe 30 to 40% of works must have been put into that project. So when you look at some other works that she probably had credits for, you understand, they don't record as nominations.
Okay, but at least her name has been listed in some of this work. That's what I'm talking about in terms of name mention. So let's talk about how this is her debut album.
Right.
And debut album, it was like Something in the Wild.
Yes, Born in the Wild.
Born in the Wild. And then Love Me Jeje has been that song that has taken her. And she's even, the beautiful part of her nomination, if I get it correctly, is the fact that she also got nomination outside the traditional nominations that we see Africans being nominated.
Africa and Europe, the R&B category. That's a very big category. That's the type of category. That's the type of category where you go head to head with the likes of Beyonce, Rihanna, and some other heavyweights in the industry. So that's very, very huge one. And I'm not surprised.
How did she do it? That's a question.
Grammy is the type of award that rewards excellence in musical quality. It's not about numbers. It's not about how much sales you've made. It's not about what your charts, how you're charting on the top charts and all of that. It's about the quality and, of course, about how you can lobby and canvass for votes. It's like politics at the end of the day. Your fellow artists and fellow colleagues in the music industry are going to be voting your work. So you need to be able to canvass. You need to be able to reach out to people and say, hey, have you listened to this? I would like you to vote for me. And of course, we must not forget that these artists also still have giant record labels behind them. They have, like, for instance, you speak about rivalry earlier, Jeffrey. It's not about just maybe a Burna Boy, Davido rivalry. It's also a rivalry between the record labels. So you see Burna Boy on a big imprint like Atlantic. You see Davido on Sony Music. You see Yemi Alade on Universal Music. So these people are also pulling the strings behind the scenes, like, Sony had one over us with Tyler last year. Universal is going to be pulling the string and say, hey, we have to make sure that this time around it's an art.
So the money bags are at work.
Yeah, they are the giant names, the big names, and all of that. So there's a whole lot of politicking also going on behind the scenes.
This was last year, by the way. This is old edition.
Oh yes, we have Tyler there.
Tyler, and we have Ira Star there.
Yeah. So we have 3 of them returning.
Yeah, 3 returning.
We have Ashake returning.
We're going to talk about Rema as well.
But before we talk about Rema, let's talk about Yemi Alade, what she's bringing to the table as well. I believe this is her first Grammy nomination.
Yes. So for Yemi Alade, she's been phenomenal. She's been consistent and she's been very, very African over all of the past years. So it's not surprising. And you know, when you look at somebody who embodies Africa as much as Yemi embodies Africa, it's only natural. It's only natural for you to hope and pray that one day she gets the recognition that she deserves. When you look at what Angelique Kidjo has done, I look back and I feel like when it's time for her to pass the baton, I think it should go to Yemi Alade. She's really, really doing great for African music.
So there's one guy we must talk about, young, brilliant, very coordinated. Finally is here, Rema.
And he started
it's a long time coming, right?
From the street of Benin.
Yes.
If I were in his management, I'll do an album title. From the street of Benin to the global stage.
Rema is supposed to be paying you some royalty because you were one of the very first person that interviewed Rema.
Yes.
I wish we had that video.
He belonged to a group. Then, yes, with Alpha P. Yeah. So I remember the first time I met him. After the conversation, I had a side talk.
This was when?
I think this was in 2015 or 2016. Yeah, I told him I could feel his energy. So after all of the conversation, we're just having other side talks, and I could see he's revved to do this. And something told me this boy is going somewhere, and I'm not surprised to see how far he has gone. And his music and how his music cuts across different regions, you could go to India, and if you go to India now, and Rema is like a god in India now. I'm telling you, his music is so huge, so big. They love him the way Awilo Lukumba was very popular in Nigeria back in those days. That's how big Rema.
Why do you think they love him so much in India?
But his music connected to them, his beats connected to them. When you hear when Rema says, "Baby, calm down," the whole country is singing, "Calm down."
Now I make the connection with "Baby, Calm Down."
Right. Yeah. So
so you knew that song.
I knew the song.
No, Jeff, you need to calm down. You need to calm down.
Jeff, calm down.
You have a way to oppress somebody. Use it well.
Absolutely.
You know, but it speaks to Nigeria's foray into the Grammy. Speaks to the power of the kind of music and the acceptability. You know, I've been, in a country, in an African country, in a major conference where Nigerian music was being played, and everybody, the whole hall exploded. You would have thought that you were in a hall, in a music dance hall back home where Nigerian music was being played. But here, this is a global stage with people from all over the world, and they were dancing to a Nigerian song. Speaking of which, what do you foresee, to be Nigeria's hold on the Grammys in the next few years if we're making this much of a success, with nominations? Yeah, and a few trophies as well.
Right, I think it's beginning to happen. We are beginning to see the likes of Thames in major categories getting nominated for their own works, not because they featured in, say, perhaps a Futures or a Rihanna's song or something. For their own works, they are getting nominated in the major categories. That's what I think is going to happen. But beyond all of that, you speak about how big and how the industry is growing. The question that boggles the mind is, what are we doing around that industry? There's a whole lot of value chain that could be created in that industry. Are we taking advantage of it? Are we taking advantage of the investment coming into the industry, because now you have the presence of giant record labels in Nigeria trying to come and sign record deals with upcoming talents, trying to discover the next Burna Boy, trying to see who is going to be the next big producer and all of that. What are we creating? What value chain are we creating in this regard? We're still having issues with copyright management in Nigeria. There's still rivalry. Is it MCSN? Is it COSON? Is it this and that? We need to get our acts right.
Together.
So that, yes, we need to get it together so that we could take full advantage of this industry when we have this much attention on it.
Yeah, and you're right. There's a whole value chain, you know, to be tapped into in terms of costume and everything else. You talked about music management. So let's go to the meat of the matter, which is predictions. What are your predictions for this year?
Okay. This guy it's almost a spoiler for me now.
Who?
If Chris Brown wins, I can't say it's Nigeria now.
It is because, you know, he is heavily
I almost wanted to say that Nigeria will win.
Yes.
If Chris Brown wins, is Chris Brown's is his song, but featuring Davido and Loj.
Loj, yeah. It's as much their songs as
it is ours.
Yes, you know, because they contributed heavily to it. You know, they had their verses and all of that. So I don't think it will be any less of a win if the trophy goes to Sensational, which is originally in Chris Brown's album, right? But the inspiration is from Afrobeat. You know, you could hear him, you could see him. Everything about the song is Nigerian, even though Chris Brown is American.
So in your prediction, you're going to predict Bukola as asked in your prediction. Is it not interesting to see a non-African getting nominated in an African category? Are we going to see more of that in the future?
Oh yes. So the genre is becoming very big, and we're happy to share. We should be happy to share.
No, let's enjoy it first.
Let's say
Afrobeat, but by the genre now, you mean Afrobeat?
Afrobeat, yes. Yeah. So look at what happened with reggae and dancehall. Came from Jamaica, and the entire world fell in love with it, and that's why it's almost impossible for that music genre to die, even though it feels like it has gone to the back seat and all of that, but it's still out there. You see Nigerians still making dancehall music, Nigerians still making, and same Americans, you have artists all over the country, the world, making those kind of. So we should share Afrobeats with the rest
You have not made a prediction.
Your projection in 2 seconds.
I think Davido deserves it. So I think Sensational. I think Davido, it's high time he got something.
What about Thames? Are you going to stake anything on her for the R&B category?
Yes. So if I know if she were to pick,
have Kelani Coco Jones there. So
if she were to pick, she would want that category because it's a major category, and we should root for her to.
You're playing safe, right?
Yeah.
All right. We hope we'll be back, you know, on the same set to celebrate our wins at the Grammys. Thank you so much.
I look forward to that. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, entertainment correspondent Bidemi Dairo there, bringing us up to speed with what to expect from the Grammys. And from there, we wrap it up on today's edition of the program. As we say, the week is just starting off. We have quite a lot for you in the coming week. So in this week, rather. So thank you so much for joining us today. I am Bukola Koka.
All right, tomorrow there's going to be a new governor in Edo State. Wednesday, Trump will meet Biden. Saturday, there will be an election in Ondo. So keep your eyes on the polity. I'm Jeffrey. So on top of the hour will be Sunrise Daily. Bye-bye.